Today, I'm going to be sharing with you something that's kind of embarrassing for me. And that is at the beginning of this year, some of you really may remember that I felt like the Lord gave me a powerful word for the year of 2025, and that was the word speak. And it's not exactly a neat little SMART goal, the specific measurable, right? It's not that. But I knew what he was talking about. My spirit and my heart just kind of knew. And he wanted me to stop hiding. He wanted me to stop living small and downplaying. He wanted me to stop whispering the things that he wanted me to speak boldly, right? And I thought, okay, I'm all in, right? Like, Lord, I'll be bold this year. I'm going to speak. I'm going to do all the things. And I even wrote down this big goal. In this big audacious goal, I knew that it meant I was going to start writing my book. There's this book that's been on my heart for over a decade. And here we are. It's July and it's halfway through the year and I haven't written a word. So don't get me wrong. I've shown up here in live streams every single week and I have spoken, right? I've taught, I've encouraged, I've done it boldly. I've pushed through all the awkwardness of being on camera as an introvert. And part of me wants to totally say like, pat myself on the back and say, well, that counts, right? But lately I've been feeling this tension and this disconnect, and this quiet nudge from the Lord. He's so kind. And he's doing it in a way that's not to guilt trip me or to put shame on me, but it's just this little gentle whisper. If I were to put this whisper into words, it's like, I didn't give you this word for just your live streams. I'm giving it for you in the written word as well. Okay. And so maybe here today, you're feeling something similar about your experience for the year, or even just where you're supposed to go in life, right? And maybe you started the full year with this vision and hope. And you really started out like swinging hard and ready to roll. But then you get through January and now we're into July and maybe it doesn't exactly feel like it fits anymore. You're still dragging it along with you because you've already invested so much into this work. And so whatever your story, I want you to know you were right on time. God's timing is perfect. So whatever timing this all comes into play, it is perfect timing. But today we're going to go ahead and check in at the 6-month mark of that goal and that dream or that word that was given to you for 2025. And there's no shame here, no pressure. I really want you to feel safe and settled here because we're just going to take an honest look at what's working, what's not working, and how to move forward with that focus and that purpose. So first of all, I want you to take a deep breath, right? Like take it in and let all that pressure go. Okay. Because if you're anything like me, like January, when it came around, it feels like it was just 5 minutes ago, but it also feels like 5 years ago, right? All at one time. And we start that year with like high hopes and fresh planners. Man, I love a good planner. I'm going to tell you, and good intentions. And then life, it does what it always does. It gets loud and it gets distracting. Okay, so things like, your kids, they need you, they're growing. You may have had a job transition or shift, or you could be someone who had an accident and found themselves in a hospital, or, a lovely family member has passed away. And so somewhere in the middle of all of this, the goals that we set in faith in January, and we started out with all that passion, they may have started to fade and sit in the background on that back burner. And I don't know about you, but I tend to carry this quiet guilt with me around when I realize I'm not where I thought I wanted to be right now here in July, right? But here's what I want to remind you of today, and I hope that it sticks with you. And I've had to remind myself this week, again, you're not behind. This is a self-imposed deadline that no one is waiting for you to finish, right? So you're not failing because you're still walking in obedience to the Lord. And you're human, right? Like achieving these big goals, it takes time. It takes learning. It takes all kinds of things. And so even more than that, I want you to know you are a daughter of the King. And he doesn't measure your worth by completed checklists or how many goals that you have crushed between January and July, right? And so there's a time for everything. The Bible tells us that. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is to stop and say, God, right now, I want to stop and align myself with you. I want to realign, right? I want the rest of this year to reflect your priorities and not all the pressure that I have piled up on myself, right? That's where I'm currently at. I'm making that prayer every morning when I get up. And so that word speak that I had at the beginning of the year that he gave me, I'm bringing it back to the altar today. And I'm laying it at his feet and I am asking him to show me what it's supposed to look like in this season in July, because it might look a little bit different than what I had expected back in January. And so before we go on, I really just want to spend a quick minute to pray over you. Okay. And so I just want to say, Father, thank you for your mercies that come every day and not just every morning, Lord. I thank you for even the ones that come at the halfway point through the year. Like, thank you that you don't judge us by what we have finished, but by how we're stepping and following in your footsteps and obeying what you've asked us to do. And so, would you just gently show every woman right here, right now, give her peace where they have been giving themselves a lot of pressure? Give her courage where there's fear to step out and begin or to take that next step of vulnerability, and give her freedom to totally let go of what doesn't serve her purpose in July. Thank you, Papa. Amen. All right. So I love that we get to just stop anywhere and bring it to the altar before him like that, right? Okay. So now that we have laid it all at his feet, let's go ahead and talk about like what to actually do with this halfway point in 2025. Because if you're sitting there feeling a little foggy or a little frustrated about that goal or dream or where you're at, what you need isn't just more motivation or a fresh to-do list, right? You need clarity. And one of the best ways I know to get that clarity is with 3 R's of going through a reset. Okay. And they're not complicated. They're simple checkpoints to help you reflect on where you are, what still matters, and what might be the time for you to let go of something, right? So those 3 R's, it's going to be revisit, reignite, and release. Okay. And we're going to go through each one. All right. So revisiting your goals. This is something that's really simple, but it's super powerful. And a lot of us don't like to revisit those goals because we are carrying around a lot of shame. But today I just want to let that go as we talk about revisiting goals, because not every goal that we set in January still fits in July. Okay. And that's something that we have to give ourselves permission to recognize. But it doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you might have grown a little bit between January and July. So maybe that goal, it was totally good, fit with great intentions, but it came from a place maybe, right, of pressure instead of peace, right? And maybe it was the right goal for a woman where you were 6 months ago, but the woman you are now, like, she's more dynamic. She's got more experience. She's more wise. She needs something different. Okay. And this is the moment where we get to pause and ask, like, is this still the right goal for me in this season? Right? Because sometimes we don't stop to ask ourselves this question and we just keep going on because we wrote it down and we don't want to feel flaky or weak or inconsistent, right? But friend, the only thing worse than quitting the wrong goal is finishing something that no longer aligns with your purpose. Okay. And you have permission to totally grow and pivot in your goal. You even have permission to release something completely entirely and walk away from it. And so that's where it leads us into the second R, reignite what still matters. Now, let's talk about the hard work of reigniting what still matters, because maybe you had this goal that still matters deeply to you here in July from January, right? But somewhere along the way, maybe you just lost your rhythm. And you had to let it sit on the back burner, like we just talked about a minute ago. And every time you think about it, you're going to hear that voice, right? That says, your internal voice that says, you blew it. It's too late. You'll never catch up now. And that's something I'm dealing with right now, because I went and told to all of you guys that I was going to release my first course yesterday on my birthday. And guess what? It's probably not happening till September. But you know what? It's still going to happen. The Lord's still going to use it. People are going to still be able to experience the transformation of it, right? And so I just want you to know, I hear this voice too. It's just an internal voice that in humanity we all experience. But when God gave me that word speak at the start of this year, I was so sure that it meant I needed to start writing that book, right? He's been nudging me to write it for a decade. So it wasn't hard for me to pick up that that's what he was talking about. And I was ready. In January, I was excited. I booked an appointment with the Christian writing coach and I outlined it. I've done some voice memo ideas about it. I've spent time praying about it, but somehow the pen has not made it to the paper yet. Okay. And even though I've been totally faithful and showing up in these live streams every week, and I think the Lord is proud of me for doing so, I've pushed past that introverted comfort zone and I've realized something completely though lately. I've been still playing it safe, right? These live streams are part of my obedience. I truly believe it. But deep down, I know that that obedience to the word speak, he's not just talking about me talking here like this. He's talking about me writing. And so just tune in and know, like when you've gotten a word and you know what it means, don't doubt that. Okay. And so that's what I'm choosing to reignite today with all of you. My commitment to you is I am reigniting this goal. And I'm not doing it from guilt because that's too easy to do, but this goal still matters to me. And if you've got a goal or a calling that burns inside of you, and you don't even really have to think about it because it's this passion that's always burning, just always burning, that's your clue, right? It's time to bring that back to life. I've known since I was 7 years old I was going to write a book. I still haven't put pen to paper. But right now, when you're reigniting this goal, and trying to figure out what he was speaking to you about and that passion, I don't want you to overthink it, right? That is something that is a protective mechanism from your brain. It's human nature to overthink something so that it stalls you out to protect you from doing the scary, big, audacious goal. Okay. And I also don't want you to try to recreate that January energy, right? We are just trying to reignite where we're at right now and let the Lord light that energy and fire inside of you in July. Okay. So you're going to take just one small obedient step this week. I don't want you to try to achieve it all. I want you just to talk with the Lord, determine what this next step is for you. And then the third R is release what no longer fits. Okay. And sometimes the bravest thing that you can do is let go and release what no longer fits. It's scary. It's our comfort blanket, right? Because we've lived with it long enough. We've come to trust it. And so to literally take it off means you feel exposed. And so I don't want you to feel that today because I want you to see that on the other side of this thing, there is magic and miracles waiting for you. And so I want you to let go of all the goals that you have set out of obligation, if you have set any in obligation, right? And I want you to let go of things that have been draining you, those plans that you've outgrown or the process you've outgrown, the ideas that were never really yours to begin with, but people spoke into this as you started to share with them that goal and dream. I want to talk real quickly about a concept called the sunk cost bias. And some of you may be completely familiar with it, but this is the idea that because you've already spent a lot of time, money, energy, resources into this thing, that you have to keep going, right? Because you don't want to lose all that you have invested. But and so it might even sound like, I've already bought this program or I've been in this job for years. Like I don't want to walk away from that. Or I've committed to all these people in this volunteer role. I can't let them down, right? But here is the truth. Just because you have invested into something doesn't mean you're called to finish it. And I know that some of you guys have heard all this, but like sometimes you're meant to be the person who plants the seed. And then someone comes along and they water it. And then someone comes along and harvests it. And sometimes you're the person who's supposed to plant the seed, water it, and harvest it. But I want you to know it's okay if you started something and didn't finish it. all you were doing was walking in your obedience to the Lord, right? You learned something from it. You now have new experience. And so if the cost to continue in this steals your peace, steals your energy, and steals your purpose, it's time to let it go. This part of the reset, this half year reset, is about clearing that clutter, the distractions, the things that are keeping you from being able to move forward with that energy. When you look at a horse race and that horse is standing there at the open and they're literally chomping at the bit, ready to go, right? You don't want to put things in their pathway that they now have to dodge and slow down because they've got all that pent up energy ready to go because they are passionate about achieving the goal. And that's what I'm talking about. I want you to clear your pathway. I want you to take those things that are going to slow you down, slug you down, make you tired, and exhaust you, right? So it's going to look like clearing things from your calendar, clearing things from your mind, clearing things from your heart and your spirit, right? So that you can totally make space for those things that actually matter. And they actually matter right now. Okay. And so I need to speak to your heart for just a minute and to your spirit, right? I want you to know that walking away from something that you've invested a lot of time in does not mean that you're quitting. Okay. It's realigning with the obedience and the call to what the Lord has put in your pathway to do, right? It's not failure. You're choosing to just switch gears and be more laser focused than you were before. That right there is wisdom. It is not quitting. Okay. So now that we've gotten through these three R's, the revisit, the reignite, and the release, I kind of want to give you a few questions to start reflecting on this week. Because in the next couple of weeks, we are going to be giving practicals on starting, finishing, time management, those kinds of things, so that you can have help with this goal and in the process of walking it out. But these reflection questions, they are going to be in the workbook for anybody who is at the Facebook group. You can go down and get them. But these are going to be some questions I'm actually working through myself this week, especially around that word that God gave me about speaking, right? But that word, it felt so big in January, and it still feels really big now. But I have realized I've been I've been showing up here, but I've also been hesitating in the deeper thing he's asked me to do, which is to write, right? So as I guide you through these questions, know that I'm walking through them too. And if you have questions, for sure, just reach out, right? But first, here's the first question. What word, goal, or vision did you start with in 2025? Okay. Was it a word like mine or something you sensed from the Lord? Or maybe you just had this personal professional goal in mind, like organizing closets in your house or setting up a guest bedroom, whatever it is. All of them are important. Okay. And the point is to remember what felt clear back then so that you can see if it still fits now. Okay. The second question I want you to reflect on is what still matters deeply to you? And is there a goal that still puts your heart on fire, right? Or even if haven't made any progress with it, you can still feel the ignition of that fire inside. That's how I felt about my book, and I have felt it for a decade, and it's still there, right? It's just waiting for me to stop procrastinating. Oh, and I hate admitting that so publicly, but I'm doing it because the power of the testimony will help you achieve this as well. And so maybe you've got something like that too, right? Like something you have delayed, avoided, put on the shelf or the back burner, not because it wasn't important, right? But because it was so important, it felt overwhelming to you. You wanted it to be perfect. You wanted to do really good at it before you started. Okay. I know what that feels like. And then third, this is the third question. What are you carrying that no longer fits? Right? This is a hard one because not everything you started has to be finished. And especially if the reason you're still holding on to what you've started is guilt or momentum, right? If you've built some momentum. And finally, I want you to ask yourself, like, where is God asking you to make a shift? Or even if he is asking you to make a shift, it's okay if he's not, right? But what would it look like to trust him with a fresh start, right? Even at this halfway point, just pretend like this is day one of the year, right? But that's just the four questions. I know they're simple, but I want you to know they're not shallow. Like they are going to produce answers for you on where you need to go next, right? Each one might take a little time for your heart to kind of catch up to what God is showing you, and that's okay though, right? So don't feel like you have to rush through these questions. You may even want to sit down with one question per day and journal them out, pray them out, but see what comes up. There may even be a little surprise from the Lord. He has been dropping little kisses from heaven and surprises to me all week about how I have thought about these things, why I have shelved them, right? Like there's always these revelations, and I get to go, oh, God, you're so good. You're so kind. Like you still are trusting me with this project, right? And so I know that these check-ins can kind of stir up a lot, right? Shame, fear, vulnerability, whatever. But maybe you'll start feeling clear though, and ready to go. And maybe you'll still sit with the swirl about, I don't even know, right? And that's totally okay, because we're going to keep talking about this over the next couple of weeks. But if you go through those reflection questions and you still feel stuck, don't stay stuck. Shoot me an email at michelle@michelledayrose.com. I'd love to go through a session with you and help you find this clarity, okay? Because sometimes when we are word vomiting and talking, people are catching things that we don't even realize we're saying. So it's important if you feel stuck, please. If you don't want to talk to me, talk with a friend, okay? Also, I don't want you to forget about our PJ party coming up on Saturday, August 2nd at 9 a.m. Central Time. Seriously, just roll out of bed, grab your coffee, hop on Zoom, join us, because it's going to be low key, but super fun. Okay. And the Zoom link will be posted in the Facebook group. So make sure you go in there to grab that. And next week, we're going to be talking about, what do you do with this clarity that you just gained around all your goals after you answered all these reflection questions? Because now that you know what still matters, it's like it's time to build on that excitement and that momentum and get started. Right. And I'll show you how to take that first step, even if it feels scary. I have been taking these steps all week, and I am thrilled with the results, and I can't wait to share them with you.